that we got snow. We got snow this morning and it became kind of blizzard-like, but now it's not snowing anymore. So it will be great if we don't get a whole lot of snow. Well, we are at the middle of March. You've made it this far. Great job, everybody. I know that spring can be really super busy for everybody. This is where you just start ramping up, MCA testing, planning, all the things you have to wrap up and finish for this year, and then starting to think about next year. So we'll talk a little bit about those things at the very end. Um, what I'd like to do right now is just have you go ahead and in the chat, just put something positive that's happened or happening in your school right now. So if everybody can, I'd love to see everybody put something in the chat of something positive that's going on in your school right now. On spring break, John. Yes. Good time to catch up. Fun. Kindergarten safari. All right. Looks like a lot of really positive things going on in schools. $11,000. That's great, Todd. Awesome. Great. Well, I know, and I'm sure that a lot of you right now are, I see some people talking about kindergarten, your kindergarten roundups or whatever you call them when your kindergarten open house where we're starting to look at the next year's class. Okay, remind me what class is next year? 20 what? Do you know? Is it 20? I always
36?
Is that what it is, Cassie? Oh
I
my,
feel like I just saw it.
I know. We always put it out there. Class of 20, what if so 2036. That's crazy to think about, isn't it? Yes. So lots of you are probably in that working on that in the heart of the kindergartners, and that's always super exciting to get started. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and dig right in. Uh, so last time, let's see. Can everybody see my slideshow? I'm assuming you can. All right. Well, just today, some of the things that we're going to cover is really obviously we just shared a positive about some of the positive things that are going on this spring or this month. And then we're going to just talk a little bit about your staff faculty. That's a word that we've been using. Last time I had 1 minute manager on there, I quickly just said, here's the 1 minute manager. I didn't really share anything. So I'd like to just go a little bit more deep, a little deeper into that. Talk a little bit about student behaviors. We know that they usually amp up a little bit in the spring. And so, what are some strategies that you can use? So, I put together a few strategies. And then just thinking about, spring and, how you keep that energy going. We'll have some time where we'll put you into some breakout rooms to share some like how the concepts that we're talking about apply. So with that, obviously I want to continue to remind you how important you are. As principals, you are a big deal. I know a research before talked about the teacher was the most impactful person um, for students and that there's so much more research showing that really it's the principal who has the greatest impact on student achievement and the culture in the building and things like that. And so just know that your impact is stronger and broader than ever imagined. You impact student learning, you impact that culture on a daily basis. And so just know that the work you do is really important. I know that there's times where it's really hard and the I think sometimes you don't know your impact until sometimes years later from people. So just know that I know as I've been visiting your schools, there's so many great things going on. I just want to say I've had so much fun. I think I'm down to just 4 or 5 people left to visit. So it's been great to come to your schools, to come and see all the great things that you're doing in your buildings, the impact that you're making, the culture that you are moving forward with. There's just so many positive things. So thanks for all you do, and just know that your leadership does matter for people. Um, we also know that you can't just snap your fingers and be at the top of your game in year one of being a principal. Leadership takes time. It takes time to change a school culture. Some of you, when we looked at your entry plans, some of you are coming into challenging situations, school cultures that maybe were fractured, and you needed to do a lot of repair with teachers and staff and families and students. It takes a lot of time to build systems that support that culture. And of course, it takes time to nurture the learning environment so that every student, every adult can be successful. I think I've showed you the graph before, and I don't have this in the slideshow, but in year run, you're really working on school culture and fixing a few systems that are broken. You're doing what you need to do when it comes to like evaluations and coaching and things like that. But it's really hard to do that in your all of everything in year one. So we really say that the continuum of principle then is in year two, you start to think about looking at all of your systems. Are there some more systems that need fixing? What stakeholders do we need to bring in to fix those systems? Um, and then how do we think about we're going to provide feedback for teachers and really put those strong learning environments in place where we know that your staff members are all in alignment on the same page. And that stuff really comes in year two, three, four, five. And so, in our principal mentorship, we've done a lot with culture, and we've done a lot with just like starting to look at systems. And so, I'm excited, and I think I've mentioned it. We have a year two of this program, and so we'll be getting some information out to you on that. But year two of the program really is looking at all of the possible systems. I'm excited because now we have MESPA fellows. We have 5 MESPA fellows that are going to help do the professional development next year, and they have tried and true systems that they put in place in their schools. And so my goal is that next year for the principal mentorship program in year two, we will have systems that if you're struggling with maybe your MTSS system needs work, we have tried and true systems that we could just give you the plan for, and then you can see how that can mesh with your school. So systems for all kinds of different things that go on within your school. Those are things that we will be working on and building together in year two. And then we'll be really hitting the learning environment hard. How do you provide that feedback for teachers? How do you enhance your professional learning communities to ensure that learning is truly happening? What's the teacher collective efficacy looking like? And so that's really the work that we'll do for sure in year two. So I just want to know that it takes time. I would say that principals hit their stride in year three. So, working towards that is great. And I know that, as I just said earlier, spring is a busy time for you. You're getting into that busy time. So spring in a school is like flying a plane while building a runway. So remember that you're not alone in the cockpit. So you need to lean on your team, the people that you work with, and really celebrate those small wins and know that the hard work is now in starting to think about planting those seeds so that you have a really, really strong finish to the end of the school year. So here's just another quote that I want to give you. Leadership isn't about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. And Simon Sinek is who wrote that quote, and I think that's really important. You'll see that in the spring. People are starting to wear down a little bit. Some of you might have spring breaks that'll give a little bit of energy to people. But know that sometimes taking care of the people in charge is a big job, and that's one of your biggest and most important jobs. And then the last quote I want to share is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's why we focus so much on your culture and the work that you do with your staff. So as we said, like we've focused in on positive culture and strong systems, and that's really truly what successful schools build their foundation with. Um, we've talked about staff faculty, like your ones, your twos, and your threes. Remember, your ones, those are those people that they're all in with your leadership. And you might not have as many ones as a principal that's been doing this for 5 years. But eventually people start coming on board, and we know that it's all about building that trust, being transparent, working together, collaborating together. That's how we continue to have those people that are all in. They're those ones that really are just like, I want to do whatever it takes to help you succeed as a principal and our school to succeed. The twos, those are the people that are on the fence. The on the fence people are the people that are like, yeah, I could go either way. Like, I'm going to follow you today, but you know what? I'm not sure I don't think I believe in this initiative. I need more information on this new initiative or whatever it is you're doing. And then the threes, those are the people that are out and about. They're tough, and they've probably been out and about for a while. Not just your leadership, but other people's leadership. And so just know that I'm going to apologize. I have a really bad cold and a cough, so I hope I don't start coughing during this presentation. But those people that are out and about, they're tough to please. And sometimes we just need to like back off and not worry about them. Sometimes we're just constantly working to hear their perspective or hear their opinion or things like that. Um, So what I'd like to do right now is just put you into some breakout rooms in just a second here. And what I want you to talk about is just your staff faculty right now. Like, and what are some strategies that you're using with your ones, your twos, and your threes that you've found to be successful? Because I think the more we can share strategies that might be working, um, the more we can start to have more tools in our toolbox. So it might be that I'm just going to give a couple strategies right now. You might be giving out secondhand compliments to people like, oh, I heard from Mrs. Johnson. I say to Mr. Johnson that I heard from Mrs. Smith that you did a great job on your genius projects that you were doing in your fourth grade classroom. Way to go. And those secondhand compliments are great. Maybe you're asking their input on different things, and they're saying, wow, they trust me enough to find out what my input is. That's important. Maybe you're writing nice notes to them. Maybe you're making sure during your rounds you give a positive to them. And you guys all have all kinds of ideas. So right now we're going to put you into some breakout rooms. We're going to give you about 5 minutes to talk about this, and then we'll come back together. But I want you to talk about like what are some things that maybe you have some struggles and maybe other people can help you with, like what you need to do with with your twos and your threes. So any questions about what you're gonna do right now? All right, Christine, I think we can put them into breakout rooms.
Okie doke. Hmm.
All right. All right. So Christine, are we all coming back here?
They're back.
All right. Awesome, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to talk a little bit about, some of the strategies that you might be using, things like that when it comes to your staff, because we know that the staff can make or break it for us. And so how do we continue to um, the important foster a really positive culture for everybody? All right. So, the next thing I wanted to talk to you briefly, I talked a little bit about the 1 minute manager, and I just wanted to spend a little bit more time on this. And we'll go actually in detail on each of these things. So the 1 minute manager, really is about like catching it, addressing it, refocusing it. If there's a problem, maybe you've heard something, you've seen something, and so this is just some information, but I'm going to go into the slides, and it really is about 1 minute goal setting, 1 minute praise, and 1 minute refocus. And so the idea around this is to have clear expectations up front, for people, and so that they know like what's expected of them and how they go ahead and carry out the important work that they do every day for kids. So the first one is a 1 minute goal setting. And so I should tell the story. Um, I was an interim principal, and I was shadowing the principal for about a week before. And the first day I walked on the job, she handed me the book and she said, "Read this. You're gonna see it all week." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I did. I saw it all week long. She was masterful at the 1 minute manager. And so, one of the things that I saw was she was able to um, do things kindly, but be fairly direct about the things that she wanted to happen in the building. And so, 1 minute goal setting. I'm going to start with 1 minute goal setting. 1 minute goal setting is where we can just set those clear expectations up front. It could be, sometimes it happens at the beginning of the year, but it can happen all year long. Let's say you're starting a new initiative, or maybe you want to reset like expectations for the spring. So let's just say that, maybe, the playground, maybe it's hallway expectations or something like that. So you're going to reset those expectations. Um, so you're clear and they're simple for staff and for students to follow. So you can use the 1 minute goal setting with students or staff. So here's an example with staff. Um, so this would be in an instruction. Our goal is that every lesson, maybe you went and did an observation. And you just say, our goal is that every lesson includes clear learning targets, student engagement, and formative assessment. Let's check in next month to see how that's going. So let's just say they missed it. And I would say you'd want to target one of those. Let's say has clear learning objectives. And maybe you just say, I want to see a goal that you're going to utilize clear learning objectives in your lesson. And then you check in. And I wouldn't necessarily check in a month later. I might check in next week. Let me stop in next week and see how that's going for you. Or maybe it's a behavior. Let's focus on reinf so this is maybe what you do here now in the spring. Let's all focus on reinforcing hallway expectations. I'll be popping into the classrooms to see how students are doing, and then we'll share some success stories. Communication. Sorry, I have a big screen here and my computer's in the way. I want to ensure that we all have strong family partnerships. So please respond to parent emails within 24 hours. So those are a couple quick examples of 1 minute goal setting there. Um, so what I want you to think about, like, when are some times that you might think, oh, I could do some 1 minute goal setting with people. Actually, we're gonna go through the whole thing, and then we're gonna go back here because one of the things that I chose to do is, when I saw something that needed to be refocused, I would do 1 minute refocusing, and then I would hit it back with 1 minute goal setting. So it gave me a reason to say like, oh, we need to work on this, and so let's goal set around it. So we'll keep going here. So 1 minute praise. So that's all about just recognizing the good things that are going on. So you catch staff members doing something well, you immediately recognize it. either in person or through quick emails, handwritten notes, interactions in the hallway, those kinds of things. So an example of 1 minute praise uh, would be I think the one thing to remember is it's not good job, it's not great work, it's very specific. Um, Somebody explained this to me one time that said, the thing about 1 minute praise is it's very specific and it's something so short and quick and easy that that compliment can be repeated. Like they can at home, they can say, "Oh, my principal said, we're so impressed at how engaged my students were in my classroom." And so you can specifically say what it is that it is, not just great job. So here's some examples, in-person shout outs. Um, let's see. Mrs. Carter, I saw how engaged your students were in that discussion. You've built a classroom where kids feel safe to share. Amazing work. There's an example. Um, Here's another one. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson, I appreciate how you supported that new teacher today. Your leadership makes a difference in our school. Or a staff meeting highlight. Shout out to Patel for using a new reading strategy that got her students so excited. Sorry, I've got who else has tried something new? So super easy. They're specific, they're immediate, they're in person, they're 2 to 3 sentences, super easy. Um, and then, so just be thinking about what's a way that you could use 1 minute praise. And then 1 minute refocus is the last one. And it's really just about quick constructive feedback. So when something needs to be corrected, do it right away, briefly, and with care. So the one thing you don't want to do is, let's say you have to just talk to a teacher about something or a paraprofessional or a secretary or somebody. You don't want to call them into your office and then have this discussion that might have been a 1 minute discussion and now it's become a 10 minute, 15 minute tears. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You've maybe been there. You don't want that. Like, we don't need to do that. If it's something super quick and easy, like you just gotta refocus it. Maybe it was the way somebody talked to a student. I would go to that. I personally would go to them. I would find a private location. I would go to their classroom, pull the door shut, have like a 1 minute conversation about it. I maybe we're in the hallway and we're by ourselves and I can refocus it then. It might be, something happened, in the lunchroom and you have to talk to the lunchroom supervisor about, how something went. So you're constantly refocusing. So when you look at this one, here's an example. Mr. Lee, I noticed some students wandering in the hallway after the bell. Our expectation is that all students are in classroom on time. Let's find a way to tighten that up. Quick, easy, done. Um, an example for a student, I saw you running down the hallway. We know that's not safe. I need you to walk in the hallway. But you're direct, but you're supportive. You show what you want. And then I think sometimes that's maybe where the 1 minute refocus comes in. And then maybe I'm going to goal set with you. So maybe I'm concerned about, um, maybe I'm concerned about how a teacher is, um, maybe managing their classroom. It seems like your students are disengaged. And so we really need students to be engaged. So what are some strategies you're going to use? And then you say, you know what? I want you to think about that. Tomorrow I'm going to stop by. We're going to goal set around what that looks like. And then I leave and then I come back and then we do a 1 minute goal setting. Like, and that gave the teacher time to process what it is that they might want to do, and then they can go ahead and be able to have that short little conversation about how we're going to goal set together. And then whenever you goal set, you want to find a time to check back. I'm going to check back in a week. I'm going to check back in 2 weeks. So so you want to keep track of when you're doing those 1 minute goal settings. So 1 minute goal setting, 1 minute praise, 1 minute refocus. So right now, what I'd love for you to do is to think about, here's some more examples. That could be used. What I want you to do right now is just to think about how um, you you would utilize this. I think one of them here on here was professionalism. And this was about being on time for staff meetings. Like those are things you want to stop. Like you want if people are always late for things or if they're coming late to work, you want to be able to refocus that because I think you're killing the culture when people are coming late to work and everybody else is on time. So, so being able to address that in a kind, supportive manner, but just being able to say like, oh, Mrs. Smith, I see you've been late for work several times in the last month. It's really important that you come to work on time. Um, our day starts at 7:30 and then you walk away. So being able to do that. So what I want to do right now is to be able to have you think about when you could use any of those 1 minute manager techniques. And we're going to put you into a breakout space here. And I think we'll probably give you like 5 to 7. Was 5 minutes enough time, or would you like a little bit more time to talk? 5 is okay. I see some fives. Okay, so we're gonna have Christine randomly put you into breakout rooms again, and we're gonna have you f talk for 5 minutes about how you would utilize. Maybe you've been utilizing this and it's been working great, but just think about times or situations you've been in where you might be able to use 1 minute praise, 1 minute goal setting, or 1 minute refocus. All right, I'll Christine put you into groups.
It didn't send me to a group, Christine.
Me either.
We could be our own group right here, I guess. That would work too. If you're okay with that, Christine, we can just.
You're all back, right? Okay. I apologize. You didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen last time. So you guys were all just like, what is she talking about? I am so sorry, everyone. Oh my goodness. So can you see my screen right now? You're looking at when would you use the 1 minute manager? Is that what my screen says? Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Like, again, I am so sorry. Okay, so I know you had a chance to talk about that in your groups. Um, who wants who wants to call out some of the things that they shared? Some ideas that people had around the 1 minute manager. We're all so shy.
I can go.
Anybody? Okay, go ahead.
I had to share toward the end of ours that I actually had the example you shared about a staff coming in late. Um, our day does start at 7:30, and one day I happened to be in the lane and they were walking in at 7:45, and I thought, well, maybe she was coming from something. Maybe I missed something, an appointment or something, so I let it go. And then 2 days later, I saw her come in again at 7:45. Another day she came in at 7:50. Another day she came at 7:40. And so I just happened to stop by and asked. She had shared with me earlier in the year that she had some medical things that she was attending to, that she had some appointments for. And I just happened to I used that as my into the conversation of I know you mentioned to me a while ago that you were running into some issues. Last couple of days you've been in at 7:45, 7:50, 7:40, just wondering if there's something that's going on with that that you need support with. And if not, just a reminder that you should be here at 7:30 so that we're ready to go for the day, because you also have outside supervision that starts at 7:50. Left it at that, walked away. I haven't gotten a response back other than no, nothing's the matter. And I said, okay, let it go. I haven't seen any difference. She hasn't shown up later, but I don't know if that means that she's using a different door to come in or if there's just something different. But as of right now, it has changed.
No, that's good. And I think the rest of the staff appreciate the fact that you're calling that out because they show up on time. They want everybody else to show up on time. So yes, no, thanks Justin for sharing. Anybody else want to share an example of one of the 3 1 minute manager strategies?
I can share. I just talked a little bit about how I use this a lot with support staff. So just like when I'm out and about running through the hallways doing what we do, just as I'm noticing things, like touch on the arm and say, hey, I need you to just take it down a notch, or like, do you need support? A lot of times I lead with like, oh, are you okay? Do you need support? You sound really upset. And just like kind of leading with that curiosity piece. Some of them that I know really well and I spend a lot of time with because of their kiddos, we're able to do some quick redirection too. But then it just feels like, I feel like anytime anybody comes to my office, they think they're going to get fired. It's like I'm this big scary person. So it's a nice in between as we're building some trust and back into my building.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Sam. I appreciate it. Anybody else want to share something?
I just shared that I've used it with when I get situations from parents complaining about teachers. Like it's such an awkward place to be between those two. And so just the quick, this came to me. I know you wouldn't do that. So I'm sure, whatever happened, can you just give me a quick rundown so I could get back to the parent, like that kind of thing. So kind of quick and easy way to have that conversation. Usually a misunderstanding. So
Yep. No, it's good to get clarity on things so you know. Exactly. Awesome. Anybody use 1 minute praise? Like example of how they use 1 minute praise?
I can give an example. I have my media center teacher who also has like pre-K stuff. So I just walked by one day and I just said, thank you for being a Swiss Army knife, because you're in pre-K for lunch, then you're here for this, then you're doing gifted and talented. I just appreciate that you take it all on and just keep flowing with your day.
That's awesome. And I love how what a great I bet you she had I got a big smile on my face when you just said it. So she must have had a big smile on her face. Felt really good about, the contribution she's making all the time. That's awesome. That's awesome. Anybody else want to share anything?
I'm not sure if this quite works, but if I think before every meeting, I always throw out some positive of things that I've noticed throughout the building. And that has really started it as our warm welcome to every meeting that we have. So just a quick, like, here's some things that I've heard or noticed, just to put it out in the space.
Awesome. And I think what you pointed out, Cassie, is really important. I think sometimes we're so, and I'm guilty of that. I felt like we hurried into this because I felt like we have so much to talk about. But I think it's so important to start with positives, and because you get yourself on the right foot when it comes to professional development or a meeting or whatever. And you sharing some positives or even having them share positives with each other. But I think that's a really positive way to start any meeting that you're going to be in. And I think if you really if you really step back and thought about the meetings that you've led and the ones you started with some sort of a positive, I think you probably would see that the meetings seem to go a little bit better when we start with a positive and we kind of start with an uplifting thing, instead of getting right in heavy into something. And so, yeah, great point. Thanks, Cassie. Anybody else want to share? So I'll just share just a quick story. This was when after I'd left a building as a principal, and was in a different building in the district, and somebody from the staff had said like how thankful they were that the praise that I gave was really specific, and how proud they were, and that sometimes they had a new leader, and the leader would spend a lot of time, like lots and lots of words about how great they were, gush, 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 or they never really knew where they stood because it was never really clear, concise, and specific. And people appreciate clear, concise, and specific feedback, whether it's positive or negative, because then they know where they stand. But when we're constantly in this spiral of like, oh, like it just goes on and on and on, it loses its effectiveness. So I think this is a really effective strategy that hopefully you can utilize in appropriate ways. And I think that the key is when you're delivering these things, you're really doing it in a kind way, clear as kind. So making sure that you're doing that with the people that you work with. All right. Well, I want to slide into spring behaviors because I'm sure that we know that once the weather starts changing, and maybe you've seen this with the highs and the lows that we've had with weather. Obviously, we behaviors sometimes tend to spike. So it's really important to have those clear expectations. And maybe now's the time, like we said just a minute ago with our 1 minute refocus or goal setting, thinking about, how do you reset and make sure that all the expectations are really clear for your staff and your students moving into the springtime, because the weather, as it changes, behaviors tend to amp up just a little bit. I want to remind you about our non-exclusionary intervention guide. We have that on the hub. So remember, we have that hub, which has got all of the important information. I believe the hub is linked to your calendar invite, but the non-exclusion intervention piece is in there. There are lots and lots of different interventions. Just a reminder how we put this together. We worked with our secondary colleagues at MASSP, and we tried to think of every possible behavior intervention that we possibly could, and put it into this document. So it was an opportunity for people to see, like, I haven't tried what haven't I tried yet? Because I think a lot of you probably occasionally have situations where you feel like you've tried everything. And what is it? What do I need to do next? Kiri, I think you have a question, so I'll let you go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hold on one second. Sorry, I'm on two computers. We just had a meeting with
The NED group.
with the NED people from the state just this week with our principal group. And when we were going through this non-exclusionary discipline intervention handbook, it says in here that sending students in K-3 home for the remainder of the day is an option. but we're getting
Yes.
really mixed signals on that. Is that the case for students on IEPs?
Yes, you
My
can do that.
district is saying no.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. That's the thing with, I think that people interpret it differently. I will tell you that I did, because that was a question we all had. Like,
Mhm.
are they excluded from being able to be sent home in the event that you need to? They are not. And the reason I say that is, and I will try to find the email, but I had correspondence with somebody at MDE in their special education department and asked that question specifically. And she responded with an answer. We put that answer out to all of our members right after this legislation was passed. And yes, so the yes, you can send students who are on IEPs home. You need to be able to document those hours as part of your oh gosh, Justin, help me out with what word I'm looking for. Your manifestate, your 10-day manifestation. So you have to document, let's say you sent the student home for 3 hours, then you'd say that's 3 hours towards that 10 days of suspensions. We don't really suspect, we don't call it a suspension, of course, but you do need to document it. So you put those hours towards that. Carrie, I know that you met with the NED department. I actually met with them that afternoon. I'm curious, what did they say? Did you ask that question?
No, because I hadn't noticed that it was in there until after we were out of our meeting.
Yep. Yep. Carrie, what I'll do is I will work really hard to find that email that I got from the person at MDE and send it your way. Some
That would be
districts are going to
helpful.
make the decision that they don't want to touch it, and I think you have to follow what your district wants.
Mhm.
But according to MDE, you are able to do that. You just have to count those hours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I believe this non-exclusionary discipline intervention guide is, like I said, it's very all-encompassing. If you've not spent time in it, I would recommend going through and reading this and just getting some ideas. Maybe you're going to highlight some things you're like, oh, we haven't tried this. I haven't thought about it. I was just talking to a principal who was struggling with a student um, just last week, and to the point of like in her office every single day. And one of the things that we talked about is maybe right now none of the adults are being successful with this particular student. And so then we talked about, what if we found a student in the upper grades, like whatever grade is the highest grade in your building. Her building goes through fifth grade. Um, what if you found a fifth grader that maybe could come down right away in the morning and kind of be the buddy for the student to start their day off right? Help them get situated, their stuff put away. Maybe there's a break time that they're able to go and have 5 minutes together, whatever it is. And she found a student and they started doing that, and she called me. She's like, I've had 2 days without the student. He's started his day really, really well. And now there's this great relationship with this other older student. This other older student is really loving this. And the cool thing that she did, which I love, was she chose a student that was kind of a little bit at risk in fifth grade, and she linked them together, and it was a win for that student too. So it was kind of a double win because of that. So that's just one of the examples that's in there, along with a whole host of them. But I think sometimes you gotta like step yourself back and think about like, oh, what else could I try? What's something, and I think it comes down to relationships, finding those caring adults or those caring students that can do this. I had a principal that actually, so last year he put together this whole mentorship program for students. He had a tremendous amount of disciplines 2 years ago in his building, and he's like, I got to do something different. So he put together this mentorship program with older students, fourth and fifth graders, I believe, and then matched them up with kids in the building, K1, 2, 3 students in the building, who needed someone. And those mentor students came down and started their day off that way every day with students. And the number of discipline referrals dropped tremendously. Um, as of last spring, as the year went on, I think he didn't have one student he sent home. Like it was just like a total different ball game. So I think sometimes you have to think outside the box, and sometimes you institute other students to help guide and help out, because student to student interaction is powerful. So that's just one of the many interventions in there. So I just want you to know that that's available. And when you're sitting down and wondering, the other thing I'll suggest is use ChatGPT. Throw in a situation, find out like what are some interventions that maybe chat can come up with, and then you work that through with your teams. But I think you also need to know that this can't be all on you as a principal. You have to have a team of teachers or staff members that are helping and problem solving together. Because the more stakeholders you involve, the more successful an intervention is going to be, because everybody has a stake in the fact that they all talked about what it is that they want to do to help support and improve this for students. So obviously fostering a positive culture by balancing empathy and accountability are so very, very important. So I have just a few strategies I want to go through with you. They're along the love and logic line. And I honestly, I will just tell you, I feel like love and logic, it might be very, very old school, but it truly does work, I feel like. So obviously we know building positive relationships first is so important. You know, it prevents emotional reactions. It ensures a fair and logical consequence. So I think instead of engaging in power struggles, we all always need to use um, a calm state of mind. And I think one-liners can sometimes settle down the situation or shut down the debate that can happen. Just a show of hands, how many of you have at times been in a student wants to debate with you whether or not they should follow that rule or not? Have you ever been in a debate with a power struggle or a debate? Yeah. We all have. We've all been in those. And so then how do we stop those from happening? And so I think it's always about how do we neutralize that the arguments that students might have. So the students might say, well, this rule is stupid. And you just say, I'm sorry you feel that way. But I still expect you to follow it. And then you walk away, or so you don't get engaged in that power struggle with them. Or even teachers, sometimes we use love and logic with. Whoops. Oh, I just unlocked here. Did we lose my slideshow? Yes. Okay. I'm going to apologize for that. Let me try one more time here. Maybe this one I can do. All right. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry about that, everybody. So sometimes teachers will also they might engage in a power struggle. We've always done it this way. And you just say, I hear what you say or you're saying, but we're gonna move forward with this new initiative. So instead of engaging in that, we will utilize maybe a one-liner and we can continue to repeat those one-liners. I'm sorry you feel that way, but we're going to do it this way. And so neutralizing that argument, and let's see here. Whoops. Of course, it doesn't want to let me. There we go. All right. Setting those firm limits, of course. I care about you too much to argue with you. When you're ready to talk respectfully to me, I'm here for you. Or feel free to take a break in my office. Let me know when you're ready to rejoin the class. But setting those limits, but giving them time and space. I think even with parents, I used to use love and logic with parents a lot of times. Like, I see that you're upset about this. Let's meet and have a conversation when you've had time to calm down, or whatever it is that they might need from you. I remember this is maybe just in a little different realm, but I had a mom that um, she wouldn't get her child immunized, and the student needed to be in school. And you just usually utilizing a line, can you just do this for me? Could you help me out? Or things like that. And so finally, like I used some love and logic with her and she finally got her child immunized, but it was only because I used some of those love and logic one-liners with her where she was like, okay, I said, I really need your child to get immunized. Otherwise, I'm going to get in trouble. Oh no, Miss Carl, I don't want you to get in trouble. You know, so can you just do that for me? And she does it. So sometimes we set those firm limits and we say like, you know, if you can you just do this for me or can you do this for your classmates? Like this is going to be good. Sometimes doing it for somebody else is another strategy that we use when we're trying to get students to, follow the expectations that we have for them. I think we sometimes need to offer choices for students with limits. You can do this or you can do this. Would you like to walk to the office or have me walk with you? Or you can sit quietly or you can take a short walk and then return. Your choice. Sometimes when we give kids choices, we never give kids choices we're not willing to say that's a choice. So you always give them a choice, two choices that you are okay with. Even with a teacher, would you like to meet this afternoon or tomorrow morning to discuss this? Would you rather try a different classroom management strategy or get support from our coach? Examples. So just thinking about offering those choices, so that people can start to think about like, oh, which one should I choose? Sometimes a kid's just going to say, I'm not going to choose either one. We know that. I'm not, you know, glass always full. I know exactly that sometimes kids are going to buck you even if you give them choices. But another option, is to think about if that works. That might be an option. Delayed consequences. I used to use these a lot. You know, let's talk about what happened. But we're going to talk about it later on. Try not to worry about it. Um, you know, or a teacher, this is important. I want to be fair. Let me reflect on it and then we'll talk soon. I think sometimes when we use delayed consequences or delayed time where we're gonna work through something, what it does is it helps sometimes that student or that teacher to just reflect a little bit and we back off the situation. The last thing we want to do is to continue to engage with a student that's not ready to engage or engage with a teacher who's not or a staff member who's not ready to engage in something like because we know that students will go into and even staff members when they feel like they're maybe in trouble or there could be a consequence for something, we get into that fight and flight mode and they're not gonna it's not gonna be productive at all. So we always want to think about like how can we prevent some of those emotional reactions and just be really fair and logical with the consequences that we might have. Um, De-escalation. Um, I want you to think about a time right now that maybe you had a student that really became very much out of control. Like out of control was in that fight and it was fight and flight. They were not ready to be engaged in the classroom and they became very agitated. I want you to think about how that was handled. So I'm just going to give you a minute to think about one situation. I want you to think about how the situation was handled. Maybe you weren't part of it until you came in at the end, but I want you to think about a few things. I want you to think about the context around it. I want you to think about how it was handled. How did the student behave? And were there any adults in that situation that um, weren't meeting the goal of de-escalation? They were actually escalating the situation by their behavior. So I want you just right now to think for a minute on that, and then we're going to talk about that in just a second. All right, does everybody have one in their mind about a situation that maybe has happened? All right. So I want to start by just thinking about, what kind of behaviors the student was exhibiting. Um, and and then I want to think about the adults in the situation. Were there any of you, and you can just show me with a show of hands, when you reflect on it, were there any adults that might have been escalating the situation for the student because of where they were at and how they were reacting? Did anybody have issues with that? Yep. So I see lots of hands up, and I would say that that was what I saw. Sometimes, because if we haven't trained people on de-escalating, and sometimes people just need to get out of the situation because they're too emotionally invested. And you see that. And sometimes we have to get out of the situation because we're too emotionally invested. And I think it's really important that when we have a student that escalates, that who all the adults that are involved need to stay calm. They need to use that neutral tone, and they need to give space for students to calm down. Students will not calm down if they're really escalated unless they have space to do that for themselves. And so for a staff member to be there and just talk, 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 talk at them is counterproductive. All it's going to do, it's all the students hearing is wah, 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 wah. And all they're hearing and feeling like is they're always on my case. I need space. I need to calm down. I want you to put yourself in a situation. Have you ever been in a situation where you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so angry about this, or I'm so upset that this happened? Do you want people talking to you about that situation immediately? Likely no. You probably want to back out of it. You want to have some time on your own. You need to process it yourself. And I think that we need to give kids space and grace to be able to do that. Some of the strategies, obviously, with de-escalation come in like giving kids space and then being able to use like some active listening to reflect or validate the student's feelings. I understand that you're feeling really upset right now. I understand that you're feeling that way, and I want to give you some time just to calm down because we care about you and we want what's best for you. And so being able to think about what are the things, and then you back away and you less talk. You offer choices once kids are a little bit more calm. Would you like to, should we go get a drink of water, or would you like to go to my office, or would you like to, sit back on the beanbag over there and just take a little bit of time? Would you like to read a book? Would you like, think about what are the things that calm students down? Like the principal I was talking to 2 days ago, she talked about he loves to color. That's the only way I can get him to, like, he needs to color before he can get back to class. And so that's a strategy she's utilizing. He colors, he calms down, and then he goes back to class. So what are some things that they need to do to calm down? Maybe they're playing with Legos. Maybe they have to have like a squeeze toy or like some sort of fidget or something like that. So thinking about what are the things that maybe help with that. Um, and I think like setting those boundaries too, like when they're calm, what are the consequences for their behavior, you know, and having that follow-up conversation like that, what happened today? I could tell you were frustrated with that. I don't want that for you. I want you to have a good day. I want you to be able to handle those things. Let's talk about what's a strategy that you can use. Can you talk like that when they're in the midst of this all going on? Absolutely not. You have to wait and come back and follow up with that situation to help them realize, like, how do I manage my stress and my behaviors when I'm so worked up? So something really important to think about. And then the other thing I want to talk about, because I saw this happen and was one of those times where I had to use the 1 minute refocus when I had adults that would start to talk about kids in front of them like they weren't there. Have any of you had that happen to you? Like they're like, oh, he wasn't listening to what he was doing, and that, like, almost like he was like they want him to hear that you're upset with them, They're talking about the student in front of the student and with you and others. All we're doing is shaming that student. And all we're doing is bringing the escalation higher and higher, and we're ruining a relationship. And so I think it's really important that if an adult starts to talk about a student, you say, you know what? Or you just give them a look, or you give them a stop sign, whatever it is, or we'll talk later, like that kind of thing. And then you refocus your energy into helping to support the student, but not allowing that adult to talk down to the student as they're standing right there. Um, and so I think that if you have an adult that's it's really escalating, they're not calm, we remove them from the situation immediately. Like, hey, you know what? I got this. You go take a break. And you're not shaming them, but you're saying, I got this. You go take a break. Or so and so is going to tap into this and they're going to help us out. But you as a leader need to stop the times where people talk about students or they're not in a state to be able to support the students, because all that's going to happen is you'll have several people escalated and you don't need to deal with that either. And then if a teacher or a staff member, you have to tap them out. You're like, you know what? I got this. You go, you follow up then later on with that teacher to say, or that staff member to say, hey, like I really sensed how stressed you were in that situation, and I really need you to stay calm. So I'd love to talk about some goals around how you can manage that. And if you need support, I'm here to support you. And so being able to have those conversations is really, really important. Um, and Oh, and I just talked about that. We want to model respect at all times when it comes to students, and not making them, giving them shame in what they do. And we want to maintain those positive relationships. So what I'd like to do right now is to be able to give you, I'm going to say probably a little bit longer than 5 minutes, like 6 or 7 minutes to talk about just behaviors in your school and of times where maybe this has happened, and what were some solutions that you had, or what are some solutions you have to move forward that can make this a much more positive experience for students. So Christine, I'm going to have you go ahead and put them in. Any questions? All back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Any ahas, anything that anybody shared that was like, oh my gosh, it's such a great idea, or um, anything you want to share from your group?
I can share a couple
Okay.
things. I actually
Please
didn't
share.
share. I'll start with the really short one, but I didn't share this with my group. So sorry, group members. We've been using this Balaviz X, and I don't, if people haven't heard of it, it's BAL-VIS-X. And it's like this, in order to like do Balaviz X, you have to be trained, so to say, but we had some teachers do it over the summer, and one in particular who is becoming a train the trainer, so to say. So the long short of it is this, there's like these different exercises that you do, and it's like tier one, it works for every setting, but it's like a brain break or in de-escalation, like I use it. And it's like a different exercises of bouncing balls and bean bags essentially, but there's like, it's fancier than that. I'm being super short with it. But anyway, I use it with a couple of our students who, if they're, if I'm speaking casually, just super pissed off about something, usually something ridiculous. Like the one time I was in my office with this kid and I just started kind of like bouncing the ball. It's like a racket ball. And he was like, next thing you know, he was like frowning and kind of looking up because he was interested in what I was doing. And then I was like, well, stand up. I want to see if you can catch this with your right hand. And then, okay, that's pretty good. Can you do it with your left hand? And 3 minutes went by, and it's a calming thing. And that's like Balaviz X, what they base it on is, you know, a kid having to focus coordination and the sound of the ball hitting the carpet. And there's like a lot that goes into it. But it's a very calming thing. So if anybody is interested, hop on YouTube, and it stands for balance, um, auditory, visual. I forget what the X is, exercise, something like that. But really cool. And our teachers use it in their classrooms every day. But for situations like that as a principal, the racquetball saved the day on that one. And I've used it many times. So
I love that, John. Things are, I had not ever heard of that. As you were saying that, I'm like, oh, I used to go shoot baskets with kids all the time, like that just needed a break. We needed to calm down. That was a great way to talk about the situation. We'd shoot baskets together. So I love this idea. I'm going to check that out. And thanks. Anybody else have anything they want to share from their group?
One thing that I talked about a little bit was how in the moment when you have a kid who's very dysregulated, they're not ready to hear why they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. We all know this, right? But we have oftentimes, you said in one of your other slides, like way too many adults saying way too many words. And so the other day, there was literally a kid flipping desks, and I just walked into the room and I sat down with a graphic novel. It was zombies. It was fabulous. It was zombies teaching physics. And I was reading this not little book, and I was laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy does not have an arm, because his arm flew over there, like, into the moment. And soon enough, this kid just came over and he sat down right next to me, and we read this zombie novel for 5 minutes. And then we cleaned up the room together. I never once said to him, hey, you should not be doing this. I didn't say anything. And that was really powerful for the paras in the room to see that could happen. And it's those pieces. And then afterwards, he was able to clean up. He was able to get regulated. It hasn't been perfect since then. He told me he hated me yesterday, which is fine. I love him anyway, all the things, but we just don't always have to say so many things in the moment. And we can use curriculum or a relationship to flip those times where kids are so dysregulated, and that helps restore the relationship in the moment as well. Or
Awesome.
preserve the
Thanks,
relationship.
Emily. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to share? All right. I just have one. I have another. The last slide I have on this particular subject is, following up on the incident. We obviously, like Emily said, like it's pretty impossible to talk about what the behavior is in the middle of the incident. We can't do that. So then we need to follow up and be able to restore that relationship with with the students. We always want to express how much we care about the student, because I think sometimes when students have like really big displays, they automatically believe that everybody that's been part of that hates them. And And what a horrible way then, and the cycle continues and continues. So students that display big displays, they need to know that you love them unconditionally. You want them to be successful. You care about them, and being able to sit down and talk about it after it's all over with and how we might handle things differently. We have to constantly maintain that relationship with them. So there are just some strategies on the screen there that some things to do just following the incident to ensure that we continue to maintain. And sometimes your staff members, like I've actually had principals call me and say, I have a teacher that said they're not taking this kid back in their classroom. Well, guess what? That's not their choice. They have to accept that student back into their classroom. That is their obligation. Like we're gonna figure out restorative practices, whatever it is, to get that student back in there. But sometimes there's staff members that aren't willing to like move on from that. And so somehow we have to get them to not hold that grudge, to learn to love kids, like love them unconditionally. But we recognize it's hard. There's even for you as principals, there's times where, oh my goodness, like that happened, that student just pushed me over the edge. And that was really, that's hard. And now I have to come back and be the stronger one, the adult in the situation. So you have to think about like how you start to bring them back, restore that relationship, maintain that trust to move forward. So tough situations because you're not only dealing with a student, you're dealing with multiple adults that are engaged in the situation that make it more challenging. So, I've always said, having an attitude of mercy over justice is so important. There are times where you might have to send a student home, like we talked about earlier. Like, and sometimes that has to happen, but it's all over the fact that we need you to be in a better space. We don't do it very often, sending kids home, but there are probably times where we have to do that. I know we're at the end of our time, so I just want to quickly go through a few things, and then I'll stay on for anybody that might have questions. I just said earlier, spring is busyness, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Please make sure you're pulling out your principal calendar and looking at that. And, each month there's all kinds of ideas for you, whether it's staff meeting ideas or whatever. There's a checklist of all the things that you might need to start thinking about. So remember that that's a great thing. So spring is our final stretch, and it's like a marathon. You've been running full speed. The finish line is in sight here eventually, and the crowd's cheering you on. So you just need to stay steady. You need to pace yourself and remember that you've trained for this, and everything will get done. And we're going to talk about that when we come together in April and how you can map out all the things that you have on your plate, class lists and budgets and staffing and finishing up making sure all your summatives are done, all those things. We'll talk about what that can look like moving forward. So with that, I just want to remind you, we are in person and April 9th. We're in person in cities at the Anderson Center. So it's a must that you come. Like last year, I remember I had a few principals like, oh, Michelle, it's just such a hard time to be gone. I have MCA testing, I have this going on. Try to schedule your MCAs while they're not happening on April 9th, or you find somebody to come in and help do that and monitor that for you. But this is for you and your mental health and your professional development. Like we're gonna have some really, really important things. And I remember the people that were like, I'm like, no, you really need to be here. And they came, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you pushed me hard to come because I needed this and this was so important. This is your wellness. This is taking care of you as a principal and helping with all the things that you need to do and be able to do moving forward. With it, I'm just going to end with a couple things too, just to let you know. I've talked about manage to lead. That's where principals and secretaries come together. We have 3 manage to lead sessions in June. Our Twin Cities one is almost completely full. We put it out less than a week ago, and it's almost completely full. We have one that's going to happen in central Minnesota possibly in Wilmer, St. Cloud area, somewhere in that area. And then we have one that's going to happen in Grand Rapids. So we tried to get them around the state. I know we don't want to have one in southern Minnesota. We did that last summer. Next year we'll bring one to southern Minnesota, but the Metro one is in South Metro in Apple Valley. So if that's something that you and your secretaries would like to do, I honestly am telling you it is one of the best things you can do for your efficiency in your office and in your school. So like I said, Twin Cities is all, I think there's only a couple spots left. So if you want one of those spots, go ahead and get those spots secured. With that, I'm going to end. If anybody has questions they want to ask the whole group, they certainly can. If you want to stand and ask me any questions, I'm happy to go ahead and answer anything. I will, as I'm looking here, I'm going to stop sharing. So with that, let me know. Anybody have any questions you want to ask right now or you want to stay on? You can do that. Okay. With that, you guys enjoy the snowy weather if you've got snowy weather. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. And I will see you in April. Okay. Bye, everybody. See ya.